Welcome back to the channel. This is the Volkswagen ID7 Tourer and welcome to 2025. This is my first video, at least first video filmed in 2025. And what an interesting year 2024 was, especially when you're looking at electric cars. So let's just call it as it is. Sales last year down about 25% on pure battery electric vehicles. However, the combination of hybrid and electricity and plug-in hybrids and all the mix is about 50%. Now, petrol is still the dominant fuel source of all new cars in Ireland. So, what's going on with electric? And it's a hard one to call. Is it lack of pent-up demand? Is it prices? Is it the grants changing from 5,000 to 3,500 euro last year? Volkswagen also want to know some of the answers to these questions. So last year they conducted their own research. Now it has to be said, only amongst Volkswagen Group cars. So Skoda, Cupra, Volkswagen, for example. And they asked owners of their electric cars some questions such as, would you go back to an internal combustion engine? And according to their research, numbers were very, very low. It also surveyed some people who have their cars but not battery electric cars, so petrol and diesel cars. And they asked them questions like, how often do you think you'd have to charge every single day if you had one of these types of cars? And people were ranging in answers from around 30 to 40% saying every day. The reality was actual BEV car owners said 2% of them charge their car every day. And it delved into lots of detail, like what are the prohibitive factors, residual value is on the list, but not massively high, again, according to their own internal research using their own cars. But it just gave a bit of an insight into Irish consumers and where their heads are at. And the predominant message I got from the research was those who have braved the change are not going back. And I suppose if you look at 2025, what should we be expecting? Well, probably more smaller battery electric vehicles at more affordable prices. The Renault 5 from 25,000 euros should be here soon. The Volkswagen ID.7, if they ever get their finger out this car, it was meant to be here mid-25. I know we're not there yet, but I don't get the sense that's happening just quite yet anyway. And I first saw that car almost 2 years ago. And if you're anyway interested in automotive news, then you'll be aware that sort of the last quarter of 2024 was marred by disputes within Volkswagen in Germany. The staff accused Thomas Schaefer, who runs Volkswagen, as being disconnected from Germany. He's come out fighting in the last few weeks saying we're more committed to Germany than ever before. We've agreed with the unions and come to deals. They have to save an awful lot of money, and a lot of it coming from wage costs, to be in a more competitive space. So what does that mean? Are they going to make their cars cheaper? Will they be able to compete with the likes of Tesla and BYD in the not too distant future? Who knows? That's their fight. But I think the talk of the likes of Volkswagen disappearing is just nonsense. Back to the present. The ID7 Tourer is basically an estate version of the ID7 that I've already seen on the channel, and hopefully you've watched as well. This car also has a bigger boot than the BMW i5 Tourer, which is perhaps a little bit of a head scratcher for you, but it's true. It would want to be because it doesn't have a frunk underneath all this space. There's two battery options, 77 kilowatt hour and 86 kilowatt hour. Towing capacity, 1,000 kilos braked, or 1,400 if you go for the GTX version. But a word of warning with that, the weight of that car combined with 1,400 on the boot would possibly put your driving category into the next driver license. So bear that in mind. So essentially it's an ID7 with a bigger boot. And just to prove it for you, you get all this space inside your VW Tourer. And you get a load of space underneath the floor as well if you need to put charging cables and other items, including the parcel shelf below the adjustable floor. So practicality wise, it's very much out there on its own. Here's why. There are lesser cars like the MG5, for example, and I've mentioned the i5 from BMW, but actually the electric estate space is not a particularly crowded one. So the ID7, you could argue, almost has the segment to itself. Now, it's also got a fairly hefty price. So after the grants, you're talking 56 odd, but actually it's basically a tenner shy of 60,000 euro, and that's for the entry Pro version. You've got Pro S and then GTX also. The claimed ranges are from mid 500s to almost 700 kilometers. The reality of driving this car in colder December and January weather means on a full charge with a mix of motorway and city driving, you're looking at about 400 kilometers. As well as having tons of space in the back for your family, 3 adults, no problem. Flat floor, no problem. You actually get a little bit more head space in the Tourer version of the ID7 because the roof doesn't slope exactly the same way. So, I mean, the legroom here, it's just massive. So, very comfortable surroundings in the back and really, truly tons of space. Some of the brilliant features of going electric are the fact that you can time the car to be warm and toasty in the morning, de-ice the windows, all this stuff that is second nature to EV owners, but maybe something you're not aware of. Unfortunately, this price, Volkswagen are still charging for a heat pump. It's just over 1,200 quid, the same price as an optional tow hitch with an electric release on it. And essentially, that heat pump will save some of your range to heat the cabin, but it probably should be a standard at this price of car. Brands such as Kia can keep it as a standard feature on cars like the EV3, so you'd kind of wonder why Volkswagen can't throw that in. 175 kilowatt charging is the standard charging speed, 200 kilowatt on the Pro S and the GTX. This car also has battery pre-conditioning, so you can basically get into the car, tell it you're on the way to a faster charger, and it will try its best to get the battery to the optimum temperature for fast charging. It does say it can take 30 to 40 minutes depending on temperature for that to happen. However, in a 10-minute journey over Christmas, I managed to get it from 82 kilowatts, the maximum charging speed, right up to 122. Really a short trip to the local fast chargers from e-cars, and away we went. So, good charging speed. 12 hours if you're charging at home, you're looking at that kind of speed for 7.4, about 8 hours if you're charging on an 11 kilowatt charger, which the car has as standard. Maybe you're able to charge at work, that's the kind of charging speed that you'd be looking at there. All the safety features, as usual, are available to you on this large tablet. The ambient lighting is nice. The smaller driver display is quite useful. Head-up display on this vehicle as well. If you like to keep things nice and discreet and tidy, you can cover bits away. There's plenty of space for large items underneath the armrest, like a large bottle of water, no problem being tucked away under there, for example. Some people say the plastics aren't really up to it. I think they're okay. There's nice finishes and touches on them. There's still those haptic buttons. I have not had one single software issue with anything on the car. No beeps, no errors at all, and it is a vast difference to even 12 months ago. Certainly when this car came out, the new Tiguan came out. Similarly with some of the newer products from Skoda, the software seems to be an awful lot better, and it's genuinely night and day compared to some of the early ID3 and ID4 software that we saw when those cars came out. And these seats are comfortable. There's extenders on the back of them. You can get options with massaging seats, air-cooled seats. They're all there. Some nice touches in the driver's screen as well. The Bully camper van there and the original Beetle, just a little nod to the heritage. It's a comfortable place to be. Now, this car has dynamic chassis control as an optional extra. It transforms the car. It is so comfortable, and the way you access it is you click on your screen. Essentially you go in there and you can make it as soft or as harsh as you like. Now when it gets harsh, it gets very harsh, but when it's comfortable, it is one of the most comfortable electric cars I've ever driven. with it on its most comfortable setting. You probably know this, but just double checking, 286 brake horsepower. The GTX is closer to the 340 brake horsepower mark. This one is rear wheel drive. That beep you hear is because I'm doing a kilometre over the speed limit. 2 taps to turn that off. In fact, VW have changed some of the sequences, so to turn off lane departure, it's just 2 clicks now. It used to be 5, so they have bettered the software in ways you can manipulate it, as well as the fact that it seems to be glitch free. There is a B mode on the stock. It's not one pedal driving, but it will give you enough resistance. It will almost bring you to a halt. With the travel assist in the car, it will read things like roundabouts. It will adjust motorway speed for you and increase it if you wish. The only thing I have noticed that is, if you're ever using the Dublin Port Tunnel, watch out for a gap, because sometimes it thinks it's a 90 km/h zone, not an 80. The cruise speeds up and you're going to have to go back down under the 80 to average out the speed on it. It happens on the M50 as well. Sometimes it thinks it's a 120 when it's 100 zone. So it's not really a software glitch as such, as just it's not reading, or whatever way it's programmed with the nav, it's not fully accurate. So watch out for it. Very little noise over the A-pillars, even at motorway speed. It is a very quiet car, and I can't overemphasize how much comfort there is. Where there's passengers in the rear, it's very, very consistent in how the suspension rides. Now, again, DCC, I personally think it's an amazing thing. It's one of those things years ago, like xenon headlights. Until you try them, people probably would struggle to see how can I justify the cost of it. But really, it's so comfortable because of it. Lumps and bumps are they're effectively ironed out. So since I charged this car 5 days ago, 22.2 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Long term is 22.3. Now, VW's figures on their website state very high consumption at 17 and really low at 14. Now, from memory, in the non-Tourer version of the ID7, and that was probably filmed in March, I think, or April this year, certainly warmer than now. I do remember sort of seeing 14 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So I'm judging it at the much colder end of the year, it has to be said. But it doesn't matter, those figures are way off what the official range claims. Like, it really is all the power you need. Don't see why anyone would need anything else. You might want a bit more grip in the GTX version, but that will come at a price. But I've done the guts of 1,000 kilometers in this car, and it has been very, very comfortable for all the family. Nobody has complained. With the Passat not being available in Ireland anymore, VW are hoping the ID7 Tourer can fill that gap. There is no doubt you can't put 1,000 kilometers of diesel into this car like you can in a Passat. But again, looking back at that research by VW, it was done by an independent company. They just used only VW products in it. In reality, again, 10% of electric car owners said they had to think a bit more about how to plan out their journey to charge. And I can only assume that people doing serious mileage, because even worst case scenario, with that mix of motorway, you should be looking at about 400 kilometers. In the summertime, hopefully a lot closer to 600. I would like to have seen those consumption figures dip below 20 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. I didn't see that once. It doesn't have vehicle to load. Is that a big thing? If you have an EV, let me know, how often do you use it? In essence, you can charge something. It's like having a plug on the side of your car, an electric bike, a kettle. You could charge basic enough everyday items off the range in your car. I don't know if that will ever be an over-the-air update, or it's a physical hardware thing that would need to change into the car. Because of Christmas, I'm into my 3rd week with this car now, and it has done everything I've needed it to do. The bikes, the dog, the kids, all the Christmas presents from grandparents, all swallowed up by this car. I've charged it every Monday since I've had it. So one charge, about half an hour, got the 400 kilometers into it, and I've went on my way. So for me, charge-wise, it would have more than enough. Now, people have DM'd me on Instagram and asked me, would you get one of these cars if you had to do some days 500 kilometers, 600 kilometers, if you were a sales rep driving in Ireland? I wouldn't fully rule it out if you have something like an Ionity charge card, because you will get fast charging and you will only be there for 10 minutes. But like all electric cars, the best way to run them is by being able to charge at home. Now, again, that research they did said a huge amount of EV owners with cars and those who would consider them, about 75% had access to a driveway, and that does make all the difference if you're going to go electric. And for me, as someone with a solar setup at home, battery storage at night time, it's just a matter of plugging it in, going to bed and not having to worry about it. But I guess that not everyone can do that. As an all-round car though, it doesn't really matter what it's powered by. It's super comfortable. It's a great size. I personally think it looks okay, but again, I think estates can sometimes be a Marmite car. Some people who need the space just adore them. And then others think the design might be best left in the 1980s. Let me know what you think though. Would you consider one? Have you got one on order? And if you're into or heading for your second battery electric vehicle, let me know down below what your experiences have been, good and bad, because the more we talk about it, the more we dispel some of the myths and talk about the truths of it, I think we could possibly see a better year for EV sales in 2025. Thank you very much for coming with me this far in the video. Happy New Year to you and yours, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Oh, and if you haven't hit subscribe yet, please do.